Hey everyone, welcome back to Hacky Lessons, and in this video I'm looking ahead a little bit to set 3 of the One Piece card game to go over the new cards we'll be getting in Mighty Enemy. I might not be able to get around to making a video for every card that comes out. We'll see how we go. I don't know how much time I've got left to edit all that, but if you do find value in these kinds of videos, please let me know, and that will give me the kick in the butt to make sure I make more of them and on time for the release of the new set. But in this video, I will be going over the one I'm most excited of. I am looking forward to the new colour in the game, yellow. So yellow's main colour identity is all about life manipulation, which means thematically the best character for it is Big Mom.
Oh, また来るぞ、ソウルポーカス。
よし、それで手を打とう。愚か者。ステイ。オアライフ。
ライフじゃ。
If you are a Digimon player, you probably already know all about Yellow's recovery power, and if you are not a Yellow player, you probably hate it. You should be happy to know that while Yellow will be able to heal life in One Piece like it does in Digimon, it doesn't seem to be as powerful, at least at this stage. Taking a look at the leaders, and there are 3 for the Big Mom Pirates and 1 that is an East Blue leader. So starter deck 7 is where you are going to get your mono yellow Big Mom, whose ability is done ×2. When attacking, you may add 1 life from the top or bottom of your life to your hand, and then if your life is at 2 or less, add up to 1 card from your hand to your life. So what we see with this ability is not so much recovery as it is like fixing your life. So you'll be able to take a life and replace it, giving you the opportunity to put a card with a trigger in there that helps Big Mom's strategy immensely. But more on that later. Katakuri has a similar ability. For done ×1 when attacking, you get to look at 1 card from the top of either your life or your opponent's life, and then place it back at either the top or bottom, and then gain an extra 1000 power for the battle. This isn't quite as useful for setting up triggers, but it does allow you to delay taking a life that won't help you in the next turn, or to reassure yourself that it is a life that you want to take, or make sure you aren't going to hit a trigger when you attack your opponent's life. As well as a bonus bit of free information of what that life will be when they do add it to their hand. This leader will thrive best if you have a good memory, so that is obviously bad news for all Doflamingo players out there wanting to play it. Black Yellow Big Mom has 4 life, and for the cost of 2 Don attached and 2 Don paid in the cost area when attacking, and you got to discard a card in hand as well. When you have 1 life or less, add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So there you have a life recovery effect, but it is a bit of a heavy cost. You are going to be putting in at least a 7000 power attack in the process, but the pay 2 Don and a ditch an extra card from your hand is enough to say that you won't always want to be paying this cost. Only leaving you with a maximum of 6 Don for the rest of the things you might want to do during the turn means you can't do both this and then play a strong card like the 7 cost or higher. On the other hand, it does let you live a little bit longer, so it can be worth the trade-off. The fact that Big Mom has access to black as well as yellow means she has the potential to be a very controlling leader, healing life and then clearing the opponent's board. My impression at this point in time is that this is very much the leader for me, so expect me to be playing this the most in OP03. And then finally, there is the green yellow Arlong, which has the ability Don ×2 when attacking, pay 1 Don, to play a 4 cost or less card with trigger from your hand. This is a cool ability, I like it. It's very similar to Set 1's Doflamingo, but it is playing from hand in active instead of on top of the deck in rested. So this is great in that they aren't as vulnerable, the characters, and you don't have to remember what the card on top of the deck was, but you do lose out on a little bit of hand advantage that Doflamingo gets from playing from the deck. It also means that the point of the deck is to play a lot of cards with trigger. The thing about cards with trigger is they tend to cost more than you would like when you need to play them from hand as a hard cast. and that's a trade-off for potentially getting played for free. So this leader makes it much more satisfying to run plenty in the deck by either using the leader ability to play them at a much nicer price of 1 don and 7,000 attack. And then there is the access to yellow, making it easier to make sure that the triggers are in your life, because you remember yellow is all about life manipulation. And another point about this leader that I think is worth remembering that makes it better than Doflamingo is potential support. So Dofi's ability only works for cards with the Warlord trait, but Arlong is much more generic, just specified characters with trigger, which will most likely always get new cards in any archetype in any set. The majority of yellow card pool in set 3 are Big Mom Pirates, and apart from a few random mermaids, you have Praline, who isn't counting herself as Big Mom Pirates even though she is her daughter, and then there's Kami. Charlie is a 3-cost blocker, but on play you look at the top of yours or your opponent's life and then replace it at either top or bottom. And then Shirahoshi, on play, draws 3 cards and then trashes 2. Now, she costs a whopping 5 don to play, so it's very expensive considering she actually doesn't have any attack power, but she does have a triggered play, so with the cost being 5, she can't be played off Arlong's ability, so really, to run this card, you're going to want to make sure that you have ways to deliberately put her in your life, like the way the Big Mum leader can. Getting into the Big Mum Pirates now, and starting off with your searcher for the deck, it's Pudding. She only looks at top 4, but she either grabs a Big Mum Pirate or a Sanji. In the starter deck, Pudding is a 2k counter, and she can be played for 2, and on play she can look at up to 1 life from either your life or the top of your opponent's life, and then put it back at either top or bottom. So you can either assure yourself of what triggers you will let happen next time you're attacked, or assure yourself that it's safe to attack your opponent without getting hit by a trigger or putting something good into their hand. That is an ability that the category leader already has inbuilt. So if you are playing Big Mum, you may occasionally want to use Pudding that way. Or you could play from the starter deck the character card category. So he costs 4 and has 6,000 power, and on play he looks at a life and then gains Rush if you have less life than your opponent. So he may only gain Rush in the right circumstances, but with those stats he is one of the best Rush cards around, really. Continuing to follow the theme of looking at life as observation haki, the next card with that ability is category themed event card Power Mochi. So it's a counter for 1 don that looks at life and then gains 2,000 counter power. When you use one of these cards to look at your own life, you may find the card on your life not to be the one you want in there for whatever reason. It doesn't have a trigger, or maybe you don't want it in your hand right now. So there are a few cards you can use to fix that situation. Some of the following cards will either take a life and replace it, or just take the life without replacing it. So there are risks in doing that in a glass cannon kind of way, but you may still want to use effects such as the category we just looked at that requires you to have less life than your opponent, so that can help you do that. And you can always recover life later with some of the abilities. You will have some other cards that we'll talk about later. Sanji is a 2-cost that has 2k counter power, but if you do play him, he can give you a bit of draw power essentially, as he has, when attacking, Don times 2, add the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. It's pretty depressing card art, so thankfully he is getting an old art down the line. Chiffon is not as good a card at all. Her main selling point is that her effect is on play instead of when attacking, letting you do it when you need to instead of setting up for the next turn, but she has no counter power, and instead of adding the life to hand, she trashes it. So it's not a card that I think is worth running, but I suppose if you know you're going to have to take a life the next turn, and the card that is there isn't going to prevent you from taking a life from another attack, I suppose she could improve the odds a little bit, maybe. Smoothie costs 4 for 5,000 power, and she can be played from trigger with the cost of discarding 1 card from hand. She has a when attacking skill to take a life to gain 2,000 power for the battle. Daifuku is kind of a worse smoothie. Though he does replace the life, he can't be played from trigger, and he needs a don attached to the ability, and he doesn't gain the power like Smoothie does. Choosing between these two options, however, you will want to take into account which leader you're playing, your playstyle, and what other cards are in your deck, whether you want to reduce your life and whether you can recover it later with a different card. Snack is a 5 cost with 6,000 power, and his ability comes from a Don attached to take a life from either the top or bottom, and he gains Banish and an extra 1,000 power. Montdour is a 3 cost with 4,000 power, and he has an activate main to rest himself. Take a life from either the top or bottom in order to KO a 3 cost or less. I think this card would be at its best in the black-yellow Big Mum with its access to black, letting you reduce costs of your opponent's cards to bring them into his range. Plus, you can use your leader ability to recover that life you lost using Montdour. Thunderbolt is an event card that costs 2 to activate main. Trash 1 card from the top of your life to KO one of your opponent's 5 cost or less. Again, best in black-yellow Big Mum. Now, after using those cards that have made us take a life without replacing it, as I mentioned, there are a couple of cards that can take advantage of that. I already covered a few of them in this video. Both Big Mum leaders need you to be at lower life to use their effects, and the category Rush card needs you to be at less life than your opponent to get that rush. Cracker is a 4 cost. He can also be played from trigger by discarding one, and he has 5,000 power and with a Don attached. When you have less life than your opponent, he gains double attack and an extra 1,000 power. Sanji is a promo card, so he might be a little bit difficult to get, but he is a 3 cost with 4,000 power, and for 1 Don attached while you have 2 or less life, he gains an extra 2,000 power. Buzzcut Mochi is a 2 cost event card to activate main when you have less life than your opponent, to KO an opponent's character with a cost of 4 or less, and it also has the trigger ability to play a 4 cost or less character from your hand. Now, so far in this video I've talked about a fair few cards that can be played with trigger, and there's still a few to go through, so the ones that we have left are all 3 costs. So first, let's take a look at the field card for the Big Mum Pirates, because the Queen Mum Enchanter costs 2, although it can be played for free with trigger, and its activate main is to rest this stage to add a card from the top or bottom of your life in order to place one of your characters that costs 3 on top of your life, face up. The point of this is to protect the 3 cost cards, specifically the homies, as they will be vulnerable and then they can be played back out for free with trigger again. The added bonus is you get a new card into your hand out of your life that you may have uses planned for if you had looked at your life earlier with category or pudding. And the card goes face up, so your opponent will know it's coming out with trigger now, and that will affect the way they approach attacking your life. It may slow them up. They may try to get you to play it with the trigger and then try to use some form of removal on it when it's played, but this will force them to use less Don on attacks, making it easier to defend the attack. So it's kind of a win-win in a lot of ways, as long as you play it right. So the homies are a strategy best used with the mono-yellow Big Mum leader, although they can be played in the yellow-black, and even the category leader if you want, as long as you run Big Mum character cards. Zeus, Prometheus, and Napoleon. All of them are 3 costs with 3,000 power, and they can be played for free with trigger, and they have an activate main to rest themselves to power up Big Mum, leader or character card in some way. Zeus gives her Banish, Prometheus gives her double attack, and Napoleon gives her 1,000 power until the start of your next turn. I do think a lot of people are probably going to overlook Napoleon, but he can be a little bit useful in the same way that dropping Whitebeard is making it easy to defend the next turn, especially if you got him out for free on that trigger, and then you can put him back into life with a stage card. The next lot of 3 costs with triggers you probably aren't as likely to put into your life with the stage, but nevertheless they are 3 costs. King Balm is basically a vanilla, although with the trigger ability it technically isn't, and he has no counter power, so I don't see anyone using this card because Paraspero exists. Paraspero is a 3 cost with 5,000 power, but he also has the skill on KO to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and grab a Big Mum Pirate, bottom deck rest. Brûlée is a blocker, and since she costs 3 to hard cast, she's best used when you can deliberately put her into your life, like with the Big Mum leader. For a cheaper blocker, you have Galette as a 2 cost. Strozen and Oven are two cards that discard triggers from your hand, and they should have plenty of targets in a yellow deck regardless, but they definitely will in an Arlong deck. So Strozen on play trashes the trigger to KO a 1 cost or less. So I suppose he would get a little bit more value in black-yellow Big Mum where you can use black to lower cost, though black kind of has better removal options than this, so I don't know. Oven is a 3 cost of 4,000 power, and when it attacks with a Don attached, trashing the troop card will give him an extra 3,000 power. And there are a few more skillless cards in the yellow card pool that are Big Mum cards. We got Anana, Flampe, Baron Tamago, and Beckham's, as well as Bobbin the Destroyer and Opera. Okay, now let's talk about the big recovery cards. So you got the 7 cost Big Mum that has 8,000 power, and on play, she gives your opponent a choice. Either they trash the top card of their life, or they let you recover one. Important thing to note that if your opponent has no life left when you play her, she's just an expensive vanilla at that point, as the opponent could just simply choose to trash their life, which they have none, so effectively no downside for them. Soul Focus is the same ability except as a 5 cost event card, and it can also be used on trigger for free. 10 cost Big Mum has a whopping 12,000 power and is the best of both worlds for what the 7 cost offers. So on play you recover one and you trash one off the top of your opponent's. Important to note that she only works if your leader has the Big Mum pirate trait, though the 7 cost that doesn't have that stipulation. The secret rare Katakuri is an 8 cost with 8,000 power, and on play he puts one character that costs 8 or less on top of its owner's life face up. This card can be very useful in a few scenarios, so if it can choose your opponent's cards, you might not want to help them out with that recovery. If you do it while you have, say, Zeus on board to give a Big Mum banish, that's a fun way to get rid of the card that's giving you trouble. Another thing that's good is if the card is, say, like 8 cost kid, you're getting rid of the card that's preventing you from attacking life, and at the same time ensuring that the next time that they do take a life, it's not going to be a card that can help them counter out of another attack, because 8 cost kid has no counter. You can also use it to put one of your own cards back in life, the way the stage does, except it doesn't have to be 3 cost, and the number of your life goes up instead of being in exchange, so that's a pretty good deal. To finish off this video, there are 2 more event cards to cover. Tropical Torment is a 3 cost to activate main. If your opponent has 4 or more life, place up to 1 card from the top of their life in the trash. A nice and easy way to burn damage, but in the late game this card is going to be dead in hand. However, there are so many cards with trigger abilities that require you to trash a card in hand that, in that case, it's just a good target to get rid of. Ikaku Sovereignty is a 2 cost event counter. It doesn't have any extra abilities like most 2 cost counters do, and for that reason, it gets to be a little bit stronger with a 5,000 power counter. And that is all the yellow cards coming out in set 3 of the One Piece card game. Personally, I am keen to play both Big Mum leaders the most, and I want to run the Homies engine, but you will probably find that the most popular leader will be Katakuri. So what decks will you be playing in the new meta? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time for some more One Piece card game talk.